the mirror. You can be a hero. No matter what people say, you can change today. No matter what people do, they can do for you. Live a life, and you won't regret it when you die. Live a life, and you won't regret it when you die.
Hola, buenos días, ¿cómo están? I'm going to give this talk today in English. My slides are in Spanish. And any question you have, you can ask it in Spanish and I can answer in Spanish. And of course, if you have any question about what I just said, you can ask. I'm going to get started talking today. And as I do, I want you to keep in mind a couple of things. The first thing is, thank you, the power. The first thing is, I'm so pleased and honored to be able to speak to you all today. I'm incredibly honored to be here. I'm incredibly thankful to get to see all of you and meet all of you. And I hope that this is relevant. And if it's not, I'm sorry. And the next thing I want to say as well is, these are only my learnings. They do not reflect the attitudes of the company that I work for. They do not reflect the attitudes of Carolina or Luminarium. They are my thoughts alone, all right? So great. So why don't we go ahead and get started. As I talk today, I was considering if it should be kind of a discussion thing. However, I'm going to go ahead and move through my slides, and then we're going to have a couple of activities to do as a group, okay? And so I would ask that you just kindly save your questions until then, if that's all right. And we'll go ahead and dive in. This is a little bit about me. Why am I here and why am I qualified to talk to you today? That's debatable. But I started in product management in 2016. And I actually started my career as a classroom teacher. I taught English and Spanish in elementary. And I moved into technology by way of education. I worked in education technology from 2016 to roughly 2019. I started at a company called Scientific Learning, after which I went to a company called PADI, which certifies scuba divers and is kind of the world leader in scuba diving certification. And I led a $15 million digital transformation for their entire digital learning suite for scuba divers the world over, across 26 languages, across all devices that you can think of. And after I did that, I went to Amazon, and I was there for a little over 2.5 years. And I worked in everything from internal customer service tools, brief stint in Kindle Newsstand, and then the bulk of my experience at Amazon was in an organization called Amazon Kids, leading first Fire TV, bringing a few million in revenue year over year, and then onto Alexa. Spent some time on Alexa, improving the kid experience and delivering Disney. Hey Disney on Alexa, which was really fun. Since then, I relocated to the UK. And I've worked in the health tech space ever since. I started at a startup called Lantum, and I'm now at a company called Recourse AI, where we do a lot of fun things in the medical training space. So today, I'm mostly qualified to chat. Now, we're going to get started with some truths, and at the end of my talk regarding these truths that I've learned, you guys, the folks in this room, or you folks, you ladies, are going to take a backlog and you're going to turn it into a roadmap, okay? So as I'm talking to you today, please be thinking about how you can apply these learnings as it pertains to taking a juicy backlog and turning it into a really awesome roadmap that's going to grow your business. By the way, completely fictional roadmap, okay? None of this is an actually real thing, but it reflects the realities that we deal with in product every day. So, truth one in UX design, I didn't think of this. This is a well-known fact. You might all know this. Pretend your user is drunk. Whenever someone's using your product, they're distracted, okay? They've got 5 things going on. They're thinking about the phone call they just had, or the email they need to send, or how hungry they are. And so it's really important that when you're designing product, you have a laser focus on what it is your user wants to accomplish and how to get them there. So you really only want 1 or 2 primary calls to action. As by way of example only, I put an example of when I was putting together this presentation. On this UI, you can see a pretty clear primary call to action. And along the sides, you've got secondary and tertiary calls to action, or things that your user can do if they so choose. But when you look at this page, without knowing anything else, you can pretty well understand, oh, I'm meant to be doing something here. And it's really important to keep that in mind in any design decision that you make. I don't know if you guys have ever had this happen on your mobile device where you've got this really, really tiny zoom magnifying glass and you have to like click it and you can't hit it with your finger. That's an example of something we want to avoid, right? So that's pretty much trick 1. Not revolutionary, but good to know. Priorities. This is one that I actually have learned over time, and it's really important when you're thinking about your roadmap, where your priorities are. And when you do that, you're going to notice in any roadmap that your backlog is going to have items that fall into the best interests of one of these individuals or groups. Any item on a backlog is going to best serve your customer. Any item on a backlog will best serve your business. And any item on a backlog will best serve your engineering team, okay? These are your 3 most important stakeholders that you'll have when you look at any backlog or any roadmap. A couple of examples that you can see I have here. Example of a roadmap item that you might see supporting the customer. Example A, you're going to have some user-facing bug fixes you're going to want to get fixed. That's going to delight your customer. You've got a faster checkout on your e-commerce flow. That's going to help your customer. That's in the best interest of your customer. Example of a feature or backlog item that's in the best interest of your business includes your win-back flows and your subscription cancellation. I'm sure you've all seen this when you go to cancel your subscription because you're paying too much. You go and they go, please don't leave. We'll give you another month free. We'll give you another 5 months for half price. That, number 1, works, by the way. And number 2 is in the best interest of your business because you've now successfully retained a non-zero portion of your customer base. I don't know what happened. Where did it go? Did I break it? Oh, okay. There we go. Automating payments to your providers or automating payments to your third-party providers, that's going to be in the best interest of your business. That makes your life easier. And then last but not least, but most importantly, your engineering team is going to have things that they have to do, engineering best practice, OpEx, whatever it may be, the day-to-day minutia that engineering needs to make sure they're taken care of to make sure your business runs. Your migrations, your mandatory migrations, you got your migration to React Native, update to the latest version. You need to create automation testing. You need to update your libraries for automation testing. These make the lives of your engineers easier. And one thing I've learned in product management that is most important than anything else is when your engineers are happy, you are also happy, okay? So it's really important to keep your engineers happy. Trick 3 is a very fun trick. Trick 3 has to do with design. But more so than design, it's really about psychology, because at the end of the day, trends come and go, but human behavior is forever, okay? The brains that are in our heads have not changed since we existed as a species, okay? And what that means is our decision-making faculties, or the things that we consider most important, or the day-to-day decisions we make, all correlate to the same kind of decision-making capabilities we had when humans started existing. What do I mean by that? There is a really cool concept in the world today called behavioral economics, okay? And there are some universal truths that come alongside behavioral economics that I have learned in my years of product management. The first thing that I've learned is we're selfish, okay? We just are. The next thing is we're impatient. We just are. And the third thing is humans want what they perceive to be the best thing, okay? Some examples of this in product management in action. Airlines will raise airfares when they see that you have searched for those routes on your device. I'll repeat that. Airlines track which IP addresses or which individuals are looking at flights and are looking at airfares across different sites. And if you go to book for a certain route or a given set of routes on a given day, later that day, or sometimes even 20 minutes later, you'll go back and that fare will be higher. Why? Because they know you want it, okay? That's a little trick that the airlines have, by the way. So what I like to do is I like to look for my airfares on mobile, but then when I go to purchase, I purchase on my laptop. That's a little trick. The next thing that you might see that's a lot more common is when they do, you're going to get 60% off. You're going to get 48% off. There's only 2 left. How many have seen that in their shopping experiences? Raise your hand if you've seen. Yes, that is behavioral economics at its best, because what they do is they speak to your scarcity mindset, and they make you think, oh my gosh, well, if I don't get it now, I might not get it. And it speaks to we're selfish and we're impatient, okay? They know what they're doing when they say those things. And last but not least, any progress bar anywhere. Progress bars can sometimes be your friend. Sometimes they're not. Have you ever taken a timed test and you have to do any like these personality assessments and you'll see where it says, you have 1 minute to answer this question. And you're going, oh my God, I only have 1 minute. They know what they're doing, all right? Because they want to make sure that they get what they want from you, okay? So this is a really important concept to keep in mind as you're thinking about the decisions you make from a design perspective and from a psychological perspective in getting the best out of your customer. Or I should say getting the most out of your customer probably is a better way to say it. So this one I also didn't make up. This one is actually from Jeff Bezos, Buddy Bezos. And it's a really important concept that I've seen in CEOs that I've met. And the reason why is because it's really easy to fall into this trap. Do not look to your left and to your right. Look at your customer, okay? Your customer has a problem. And your product, your business, your mission is to do the best you can do to solve that problem. The way that your competitor chose to solve that problem is irrelevant to you because that's not your business. Your business is your customer. And it's really important to keep in mind that the obsession with competition will drive you towards a wreck as opposed to driving you to your destination. What do I mean by that? If you're looking to your left and your right, you're not looking straight ahead, so you're going to run into a tree. The products that I have listed here are a couple from Amazon that I do know, having worked there, that I do know came from this concept. The market of e-readers did not exist before Kindle. And smart home devices did not exist before Alexa. Why? Because they looked at their customer and said, how can I better solve these problems for this customer? Okay? I love this. I believe in this so deeply. I can't stress that enough. I've got like 3 more slides, and then we'll get into our discussion and our activities. If engineering pushes back and they're really vocal about something, whatever the thing may be, chances are it's a really good reason. Usually, engineering doesn't mind, right, what kind of decisions product is making, so long as in our construction, we abide by engineering best practice or build best practice. Now, tech debt is a thing that we all live with. It's a risk we all take. We all, on some levels, adopt tech debt. And we also offload tech debt as part of the game. But it also is super important to remember that when you are trying to decide whether to take on tech debt, you bear in mind, A, your resources, B, the state of your business, and C, the needs of your customer. In some cases, there might be a situation where speed to market, or time to market as they see, is more important than accumulating a little bit of tech debt. In other cases, that tech debt might not be worth it, and you want to spend the extra time to put into the build to make it right, because you don't want to have to worry about that later. It's really important to bear these in mind when you're thinking about, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the tech debt worth the trauma? Okay? Oh, and this is another thing I also wanted to say. Keep an open mind to how you can solve your customer problem. Because if engineering pushes back on your idea, and your idea is amazing and awesome, and you've got all these customer testimonials, and they say, oh my God, this is gonna be the coolest thing I've ever seen, and engineering goes, no way, which does happen. Usually, and often, engineering will have a better way to solve that customer problem that you never thought of that equally meets the needs of your engineering team. So keep an open mind when you're talking with engineering. If they push back hard on some aspect of whatever you've given them, it's probably for a good reason, and probably you guys can come up with a better way to solve the problem. MVPs. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of MVP. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of MVP. For those of you who do not know, MVP means minimum viable product. There are a lot of attitudes in today's world about the nuance between minimum viable product, minimum lovable product, MLP. But the thing that I've learned in my years of product management is that your product, any product I've worked on, has to be 3 things in order to be viable. The first is it needs to be stable. You would think it's a given, but it's not. It's not a given. So it's really important that you have a strong team to ensure that your product is stable. Second tenet that I live by is your product needs to be scalable, okay? If you've built the coolest thing for the one customer and it does everything that customer could ever want to do, but it is useless for any other potential customer, your product doesn't scale. And that's not going to be a viable business model. Last thing, perhaps the most important, it needs to be the best version of the solution. What do I mean by that? If an email can solve your problem, you haven't solved the problem better, okay? If you've designed a tool that is so hard to use that they would rather just send a text message, you haven't solved the problem, okay? It needs to be the best version of the solution to that problem. Yeah, and I love this saying. I don't know if you guys have ever heard it. Did we build a faster horse or did we build a car, okay? So you really need to ask yourself that sometimes because you really need to think about what is the best version of the problem. Okay, cool. One more slide and then we got our activity. This is a typical marketing funnel. You might or might not be aware of what a marketing funnel has. It's this. And for the purposes of like sharing general knowledge, I thought, let me just drop this in here because it might be a good place if you guys had any questions. A lot of people get really excited about metrics. But what I've seen and what can happen if you're not careful is the metrics you've selected have nothing to do with what you intended to measure, right? So as a product manager, it is essential that you know how to measure what you want to measure. So for in this case, I put every step of the marketing funnel or of the customer acquisition and adoption funnel and some metrics that would make sense to track. First, awareness. You want your customer to be aware of your product. You might think about your daily visitor count or your bounce rate. That's going to give you a high-level overview of the awareness of your product. Also, for your awareness channels, likely at your top of funnel, your marketing team is going to have some cool metrics as well on your socials, on your marketing channels, on landing pages, etc. I don't work in marketing. I never have. I don't claim to. But you should have, at the very least, some rudimentary metrics around the awareness that your potential customer base has on your product. Next is consideration. So they visited your site. They're like, interesting. What is this about? You can measure consideration using a number of different metrics, but at a very high level, you can get a rough idea of your consideration point in the funnel by the number of items in a shopping cart, assuming you have an e-commerce solution, or your daily visits that last over 1 minute, okay? You can also check that by looking at your customer funnel. So when you implement your telemetry, or when you implement your analytics panel, you'll be able to see where your customers are going when they come to your landing page. And that's a really juicy bit of information that you can take with you about what your customers are doing and why, and are they considering your product, and if so, why or why not. Conversion, total number of new customers in a given week, month, year, percent of new clients from a given channel. What number of new customers have you gotten, or what percent of your customers have come from a given channel or from a given landing page or outlet that you have advertised your product on. Again, very high level metric, but it's going to give you a really strong understanding of your conversion rate. Activation, your total downloads in the case that you have a mobile app. All of the users, so let's say you've got a B2B. Let's say you've got a B2B offering and you've sent their activation codes or their what have you. They've signed up, their company's paid, and now you want to get your users started. How many have registered? If you sold your product to a company of 1,500 employees, and your product is intended to serve the needs of all 1,500 of those employees, and after the first month of activation, you see that the number of users that have actually registered on your platform hovers at around 30% of that 1,500, you know that you've got an activation problem. Loyalty. Who's coming back to your site? Who's coming back to your product? How many repeat visits per month? Average number of total customers that renew, average total number of users that continue to come back to your product. That's going to give you a really strong metric of your loyalty. Last but not least, advocacy. Pretty straightforward, your NPS score. I, in all honesty, have such conflicting feelings about NPS. I think it's really important. 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 I think it's really I never really liked it, but it is insanely effective at getting a read, at getting a temperature check of what your customers really think about your product. So your NPS score is super valuable. NPS, by the way, if you don't know, that means Net Promoter Score. It's global, and you can put it into whatever product you have. You can send it out to customers in a follow-up email, whatever, and you can get a sense of how they really feel about your product. I can almost guarantee nearly 100% of you have actually seen an NPS question and you've answered it at some point in your digital lives, unless you don't use technology, in which case, cool, congratulations to you. You haven't had to see that. But it depends on the goals of your business, where to invest your engineering time. And it really depends on the goals of your business strategy, where makes the most sense to be measuring this funnel. Now, yes, you can have touch points at every step of this funnel, but which metrics are going to be driving your business strategy? And that's a key difference between your marketing funnel metrics and your OKRs, just like Natalia just talked about in the last talk, if you were there. Last but not least, product positioning. I think this one's kind of fun. Because you can do all kinds of stuff with it. The value of your product should be obvious. You'd think that that's like a no-brainer. It's not. It's not a no-brainer. If it needs an explanation, it's not the right product. So for an activity, what we're going to do is, I've got some examples here of some products that I've worked on. Okay? If it takes longer than 6 to 8 seconds to explain what your product does, build something else, because it's not obvious. And if it's not obvious to you, it's not obvious to your user. If it's not obvious to your user, you don't have a product. Just some examples here. Web-based guided reading tool for students with learning difficulties. That's an example of a product I worked on. Learning platform for, or digital learning platform for scuba diving certification. That's an example. I did this in Spanish and I'm translating in my head in real time what it is in English. So I'm like, seguimiento en vivo de interrupciones de productos para servicio al cliente. This was live tracking for product interruptions for customer service. So if there's a product outage, customer service has a tool that they can use to live track for interruptions. TV streaming without commercials for children. Virtual patients that use AI to help healthcare professionals, to train healthcare professionals. What else, okay, and I'm actually asking you in this audience, what else are some examples of some products that are obvious? I'd like you to raise your hand and share some other examples of some products that are obvious. What are some other products that are obvious? What did you say? Mobile phone. What does a phone do? Calls everyone that you want to call, right? It's pretty straightforward what that does. It's pretty obvious. What are some examples of other products that are fairly obvious in terms of what they do? What's that? A car. What is a car? Like if you had to describe a car for someone who's never seen a car, what would you say? Point A to point B. What does a car do? It takes me places, right? It's pretty straightforward. What's an example of another product that's pretty obvious? What's that? Pencil. Pencil's really obvious. Are there any software products that you guys can think of that are pretty obvious what they do? An operating system. What does an operating system, if you had to describe your product to someone who's never, if you had to describe operating system to someone who's never heard of operating system, how would you describe it? That was beautiful. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. No, I'm kidding. No, but that's exactly right, isn't it? So an operating system is hardware that controls the software on top of it. You guys get the point, okay? So we're going to move on because we have more fun activities. But for self-reflection, if you have a startup and you're thinking about your product, is it obvious? Because if it's not obvious to you, it's not obvious to anybody else. So this time we're going to do a bit of a case study, okay? This is kind of a fun one because this actually happened to me at Amazon. And it makes a larger point, which is the bread and butter of any product management decision making. And that bread and butter is, in order to make any decision or in order to drive product growth, you must have two things to tell your story. First, you need data. And second, you need anecdotes. Again, not my idea. As you all may know, this comes from Amazon. But it's insanely effective at getting your point across quite quickly. And there was a case that I ran into where I did some data analysis and I did some digging in customer research and feedback. And I found out some interesting things. And so what I want us to do today, oh, thank you. Did you just bring me water because you're nice? Oh my God, thank you. So what we're going to do today is we're going to actually look at what data we had to make our decision and what anecdotes we had to make our decision. And then what I'm going to ask you all is, I'm going to ask you to guess at what the problem was, okay, that we solved. Because we did solve a problem. We solved a few problems. So right here, up on the screen, can you all see that? You can all see easily. Obviously, it's massive. But if you can't, let me know. You've got your data right here, okay? So 30% is going to be your conversion rate from the first time that a new user registers to the monthly active usership. That is to say, 30% of your customers return once a month after they register. Whoa. Only 30% of your customers are returning after they register in a given month. Number one, that's your first data point, okay? Second data point, 25% of all the user feedback over the last 3 months mention registration. 25% of all of the customer feedback over the last 3 months mention sign up, okay? They mention some flavor of registration or sign up. Your last data point that you've got to go on, customer service spends almost $1 million a year triaging customer service contacts that have to do with registration or sign up. So that's your data, okay? That's what we got. Those are our clues. Next, we've got our anecdotes. We dug into our customer feedback, okay? We dug into our customer reviews, as you all may know, on Amazon.com. We are able to, you know what? Yes, actually, I will have some water. On Amazon.com, you are obviously able to leave a review of any product, and we are not allowed to take them down, and we're not allowed to remove them. Obviously, with a few caveats, don't be offensive, don't be rude. But at a high level, we're not allowed to touch those, okay? By the way, very entertaining reading. If you ever want to get into that, Google funny Amazon reviews. It's really good. But nevertheless, we went in to look into our customer feedback reviews to find out what was going on. And we found the following anecdotes. I couldn't sign up for this. That was the whole customer review. I couldn't sign up for this. That was the entire review. I had to call customer service to sign up. Again, that was the entire customer review. When my product didn't work, it said, continue setting up using your mobile app. It didn't say anything else but that for several days. Right? So this is a customer leaving a review about a product that we had, and that's what they said. All right? before we move on. What do you think the problem or problems are? Do we have an extra microphone by chance that we can have for the audience? Just because I am deaf, I think. Probably, honestly. Cuéntame. ¿Qué piensas que es el problema?
Ahora sí. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Meg. I think that this reflects something deeper.
Okay.
If we put into production a product that you cannot register, it's because we are sending the product before testing it. It's like I develop the product and it goes directly to production and no one tested it. You have to test well.
So QA problem. So we got a product quality problem.
Yeah, and
all right.
I think it should be like the source of another problems. Not you're seeing only this, but maybe another problems related to that. It's what I think.
Okay, that's a great guess. I love that. Also, it sounds like you might be developing your hypothesis based only on this one down here. But it's a good hypothesis. And also, by the way, it's true. But we'll learn that later. What other problems? What problems do we think we've got? Yeah.
I think there's no clear CTA in the customer journey. So
There's
they don't,
no clear.
so they don't know how to register, or it doesn't save their registration, so they have to do it over and over.
Okay, so it's not a clear. Do you guys know what call to act? Do you guys know what a CTA is, by the way? CTA, call to action, for those of us who don't know. Call to action, which is whenever you look at a screen, you've got a couple buttons. Each of those buttons are considered a call to action or CTA. Okay, so you say there's no clear call to action in the registration flow, or they have to go register several times. Interesting, great. What other problems do we think we have?
Hi, Meg. Nice to meet you.
Hola.
Maybe the segment of the customers, because you said that 30%, maybe it's the older people or younger people, they can understand how they're going to register, or maybe the terminology about how, because it's only the 30%, so it's going to be like 17% can do it.
So this 30% metric is not about your successful registrations, which is a really important distinction, and thank you for calling it out. Of 100% of new customers that have successfully signed up, only 30% return at least once after signing up. Es decir, si usted tiene 100% de personas que registran para su producto, de ese 100%, solamente 30% regresa otra vez después de registrarse. ¿Sí? Pero sí.
Okay, hi. I think there is a bad design in the general application.
Bad design in general application.
Yeah. First, it's clear that the registration process is not easy to follow.
It's not easy to follow.
No, it's not easy to follow. Also, the application or the process that the person can do when the person go inside the web page or anything is not something that is easy to
It's
move.
not something it's easy to
do.
see.
This is one of the possible things that make the people don't come back. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe it's
Like después del registrarse es difícil para usar. Es decir,
it's highly possible that this happens.
Puede ser.
Because
Puede ser.
there is no high attach of the people that the people didn't come back frequently to your app. If your app is easy to work,
Ok,
come back.
eso es difícil para usar, es
Yeah.
decir, sí, listo. Bueno, ¿alguien más? ¿Alguien más? Ok. La mitad de ustedes están correctos. Bueno, más de la mitad. We actually found a few things wrong when we dug in to our customer sign-up flow. The value proposition is not clear in the sign-up flow. Es decir, what am I signing up to? What am I getting? Customers were not returning because whatever we were offering them wasn't what they wanted. Pretty straightforward, right? Pretty straightforward. The next thing that we found, like a lot of you mentioned, is that the registration flow is unnecessarily long, and the lack of clear messaging to the customer about the device frustrates the customer. There's some nuance here, and that is to say, and to be fair, I knew this, you all didn't, so you wouldn't know this, but we had an issue where our product was a digital offering, okay? It was a digital service that you could sign up and subscribe to. It only worked on X number of total devices that Amazon had. Okay? It didn't work on all of the devices that Amazon had. Not only were we not clear about that to customers, we actually didn't tell them anywhere that that was the case. Okay? So that's a problem. On top of which, they weren't clear what they were signing up for, and as you all pointed out, the registration flow was unnecessarily long and complex. So, what did we do? Can anybody tell me what you think we might have done to solve these problems? I would love to hear some ideas of some things we might have done to solve this problem. Some of them are obvious, some of them less obvious. What do you guys think we did to solve the problem? Yes. Sir, at the back. At the back, al atrás. Está apagado.
Hi.
Hi.
I think this is one of the best or most important challenge that we have with you have some product or something like that. So in my opinion, I think that review your value proposition. You can, for example, expose this or talk with different kind of people. In my case, I think if your closer person understand your value proposition, maybe that your first user that give a really good feedback and you learn from them.
Yep, so that's the first thing we did was we updated the messaging for our value proposition in all of our sign-up flows. What's another thing we did?
And secondly is I think that you have to eat every time your value proposition. For example, when you say when something told you what you do, you ever tell about your value proposition. I think it's a good practice to like introspection of the value proposition inside of you.
Can you I don't quite understand.
I mean, if you deliver your value proposition every time, for example, when someone asks about what are you doing, you can every delivery your value proposition constantly in order to repeat and test what are you doing.
So what I hear you saying is that we repeatedly tested the value proposition messaging to be clear to the customer the quality of our product.
Yes, there is.
We did A/B test our value proposition messaging. Excellent answer. What else did we do? Because we did a few things. What else did we do to improve the customer flow? Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't know if this is too simple, but in my case, I will delete the registration process at the very beginning in the customer's journey, and then when they get access directly to the app or whatever you do, they can decide if this is good enough to set up, I don't know, the registration. So you are gonna avoid the friction from the very beginning and the frustration as well.
That is the most interesting answer because that's kind of what we did. What we ended up doing was we updated the value proposition messaging and we A/B tested for best case. The second thing that we did is we shortened the sign-up flow so that it was a lot easier for new customers to complete the sign-up flow to get to where they're going. And the third thing that we did was we launched something I'm sure you've all heard of, an offering that's called freemium, which is to say, to make our value proposition more apparent to our customers, we put all of our exclusive content, I should say, we put a portion of our exclusive content in front of the paywall so that as soon as you signed up, rather than seeing whatever you put there, or rather than seeing nothing if you didn't select any, this was for a streaming service. So if you didn't select any streaming apps or you didn't select whatever, you wouldn't see anything there. Well, what are you meant to do as a customer if you sign up for something and you land on a landing page and nothing is there? What kind of service is that? So we naturally added a large host of our premium content in front of the paywall, which actually drove new registration, new signups by some 4.8% month over month on average for the first 3 rolling quarters. So that was a really fun project, and it was a learning, We ended up doubling our signups, and we also ended up moving our conversion rate from 30% to 67% after we launched these experiments. So it works, folks. Experimentation works. And root causing using data and anecdotes works. Last but not least, how much time are we? How are we on time? We're good? Fantastic. So this is the last activity we're going to do today. And this is the one where you guys are going to get to sit in the driver's seat. What is it like to be a product manager? We're going to do this right now. This is a backlog, okay? And based on everything we've learned today, what I'd like for you all to do, get into groups, okay? 2 or 3. If you have 4, not allowed. I'm just kidding. Do what you want. But what I want you to do is take a look at this roadmap. You guys are going to break up into your pairs or into your groups. If you don't have a friend, raise your hand. We'll find you a friend. And what you need to do is you need to plan what a roadmap would look like with or without these items based on the things we've learned today. Important to note, please, your developer estimation, okay? This is for one developer, how long it takes one developer to build each of these items. What is a roadmap? A roadmap is a timeline, okay? So you cannot, for example, on your roadmap, put these 2 items, one right next to the other, assuming that your developer is going to be able to complete them both at the same time. That's not what's going to work. Why? Because each of these takes 2 weeks for one developer. And you need to assume you only have one developer. So you can only put one for 2 weeks and one for another 2 weeks, okay? So what you need to do is you need to make a roadmap for the next 2 months that includes some or all of these items based on your estimation and, importantly, your business impact. These are real business impacts that I've actually had to deal with in roadmap planning. Okay. When I say go, you're going to find your groups. We have 10 minutes maybe to do this activity, and then we'll go around and we'll finish up. Does that sound good to everyone? Yes, no? Cool? Cool. Okay, great. Thank you for the thumbs up in the back. Okay, great. Go ahead and find a friend, and let's get started. I'm going to call us back in 10 minutes.
Man in the mirror, you can be a hero, no matter what people say.